Hey, everybody. And of course, welcome into Senior Living Live. My name is Melissa. Thanks so much for being with us. Of course, as I mentioned, thanks to the internet, there are a lot of places to find information about senior living. And today we are going to discuss some of the more reliable places or resources that you can use to help you navigate through your senior living journey. And as you see, our man right here, David Schless, he is the president and CEO of American Seniors Housing Association. He is, of course, our expert on this topic today, and he'll share his resources with you and answer all of your questions, as I mentioned earlier, at the end of the webinar, which we expect to take about an hour. You can be a part of the conversation. Scroll down to the bottom of your screen where that little button that says Q&A. You'll click on that, type your questions out there, and I will be happy to read those to David at the end of his presentation. David, the webinar looks awesome. Thank you so much for being here. And the webinar is all yours.
Wonderful. Well, thank you. Thank you, Melissa. So we're going to try and cover a fair amount of ground today. And ultimately, what I would like to be able to do is help illuminate in a number of things that I think many consumers are unaware of as they are searching for information online. We'll talk about a whole host of topics. Again, we're going to cover online advisors, how they work, how they get paid, ratings and consumer reviews, marketing practices, questions to ask, talk a little bit about local referral. In essence, really going to try and spend some time and hopefully help you become a better consumer. And that's going to require us to talk about a whole range of things that is not very well understood by consumers, probably not very well understood even by some in the senior housing and care industry. So we're going to start with just kind of the basics of how do senior living online referral services work. And I always like to use the term intermediaries because I think that's really the best way to describe the senior living or senior care online referral providers. They're intermediaries, much in the same way that an Expedia is an example of an intermediary in the travel world, hotels.com. Essentially, that's what we're talking about when we're talking about the various senior living online referral services. Fundamental to how they work is that they make money acquiring consumer contact information. And we're going to talk more about that. That's going to come up on several different slides that we're going to talk about. And essentially, these senior living online referral services are referring consumers to those providers that they have specific contracts with. And that also is a theme that's important to note. And compensation, these companies are compensated by the community. Generally, the compensation equals 1 month's rent after the client moves into the community. We're going to just talk about a few things that I think are really important. Number one, not all community operators participate with online placement services. So that when you're talking to a online referral service, you have to know that in some markets, you're missing a number of communities, and in some instances, you're missing perhaps the very best communities that just don't participate with online placement services for a variety of reasons. Again, some of the communities that don't participate because of the expense and the cost and a whole host of other reasons. But that's really important to know as a consumer. And then likewise, none of these online senior referral services contract with every community. So again, what you're going to be getting from the referral is going to be by definition limited. Overarching comment that I have now and will continue to make is that again, you are best served by really researching all of your potential options. So you're going to want to do your own research if at all possible, and make sure that you are considering all of the communities that are potentially in the market that you're interested in. Again, I'm a big believer in the do-it-yourself research directly with the community, and if you have the ability to do so early. I mean, again, this is one of those where planning is always best, and doing it yourself is always best, and doing it directly with the communities is going to give you the best information and is going to help you make the best selection. Where I think the online referral services can be helpful, they can be helpful in a really urgent situation. They can also be helpful, if you are, if the individual is unable to search themselves, perhaps there's a large distance, someone's in a real crisis. That's where I think the online referral services really can be most helpful. This is the next slide here. I want to just talk about the quality of the online advisors, or the people that you would be dealing with, perhaps by phone. It's always important to know who it is that you're communicating with, and I think for a lot of consumers, when they utilize online referral services and advisors, they mistakenly believe that they're talking to someone that has a background in geriatric social care, someone who has worked in the senior care field, somebody that has real expertise. That might be the case. Frequently, it is not the case. Again, who is it that you're talking to? You're talking to someone that is really a dedicated senior care professional, or are you talking with somebody who's in a call center who has very specific sales quotas? And that's important as a consumer. Certain things that you should consider, again, the experience of the person that you're dealing with. What are their credentials? Do they have any credentials? As I say, are they just a person in a call center who is, probably not even listening to what you're saying? And do they have firsthand knowledge of the providers and the communities in a particular market? Going we'll talk more about this in a bit, but those are really important things to understand as a consumer. I'm going to go back to the profit motive, which I mentioned earlier. The first bullet that I have here is a really important one, and that is, don't assume that the referral or the recommendation is based on what you've told the individual or what you've described. That probably is not always going to be the case. So, are they really listening to you? Maybe, but probably not. They are going to present or recommend communities that pay them a commission. That's the only thing that they're really focusing on. Might you find a good advisor? Absolutely. Might the community be a good one? Absolutely. But again, the way these work, they're motivated by profit. They're going to be focused on how they get paid the quickest. And so in some instances, they're going to make recommendations based on communities that give them the most money. Some of them use algorithms that will direct referrals to communities that have the quickest closing rate. that is motivating their work, and that is true irrespective of who you're talking to. Again, doesn't mean that it's a community that's not worth living in. In fact, many of them are absolutely terrific, but this is motivating the work that they're doing. We're going to talk more about this in a little bit as well. We're going to talk about who actually owns these senior care referral services, and again, many of them are very well funded, privately held entities. Price comparisons are something that really are very central to a lot of what the senior online referral services are focused on. That's what they're telling you, that we can help you, we can make everything like really easy, and we can give you, multiple price comparisons across a variety of senior living communities. What I will tell you is they can't. There is no real price shopping comparisons coming from the online senior referral services. And the reason for that is, one, again, they don't represent all or even most of the communities. So they don't have all of the pricing for all of the communities, because they're only working with, a certain number of communities in a particular market. As important as that is that senior care costs are really very customized, and they're dependent on a variety of variables. So they're different than, for example, multifamily housing, in that, again, most senior living communities, particularly those that offer or provide supportive care services, are the pricing is really very tailored to what an individual's unique needs are. So that is something that you need to be aware of. And there's a host of variables. So yes, there might be some baseline underlying pricing, but it really is going to be very specific to the unique needs of each individual. And that's particularly true for senior living that offers supportive care services. Additionally, and this again is going to be true with each company, that each community, there are different incentives that are available at different points in time, based on inventory, based on available apartments in a particular property. So again, if you are really interested in senior living options, you want to understand pricing, obviously that's important. The only way you're really going to get accurate information about how much does this particular property cost is going to be to go to the community. And I will say also, again, much like other types of real estate, there are elements also of which unit, the size, the composition. So again, I will tell you that despite the pitch from the senior referral services that they will be able to give you really accurate price comparison across multiple communities, that is false. If you want to really understand pricing, you really should go directly to the community and have that conversation. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the ratings and consumer reviews. And again, I'm going to try and kind of give you a little bit of color. Again, as a consumer, there are different sites out there with different sources of information. Again, worth looking at? Yes, probably worth looking at, but there's some really important things as a consumer that you need to be aware of. The first thing I would say is, again, there are no clear standards or performance criteria. So this is again where a senior living community is different than a toaster oven, or some other type of consumer product. So you have to be aware of that. And there's a lot of different things that go into reviews and ratings. We're gonna talk a bit about some of the more important ones. Again, what you'll see on a number of the websites is, reviews from the actual, website that is run by the senior referral service. So again, they're setting their own criteria. It is not clear to the consumer really what it is that you're looking at when when the review is 4.5 stars. It's not clear what that means, and so you have to be aware of that. Again, it doesn't mean anything good or bad. It just that's what's up there, and generally speaking, you're not really sure what that rating is. There's also a couple of well-known consumer surveys that are out there in the senior care, senior living space. U.S. News and World Report is one of them. J.D. Power is another. And what I would say about these consumer surveys is there's useful, helpful information to consumers. No question about that. I've looked at the surveys. They're absolutely legitimate, and there's good information there. However, and again, this is the big however to the consumer, is that they're the U.S. News and World Report and J.D. Power, they are to participate, you need to pay. So these are consumer surveys that are very legitimate. They're high quality, but and it's a significant but, and the significant but is that in some instances, the sample or the number of participants in their survey is very limited. Maybe it's 30% in a particular market, maybe it's 40%, 50%, but again, you're not looking at all of the data. So when you see, best of assisted living in such and such market, again, it probably is, terrific, but it is also almost certainly not reflective of a complete sample or, a full participation from all communities. So that's important to know as a consumer. And that's where, again, in a perfect world, we would have more transparency. And when you saw, best of, assisted living in a particular city, they would be transparent. And they would say that, sample includes participation from, X number of communities, so that as a consumer, what am I really looking at? And I think that's the important thing to know, that while it's helpful information, while the surveys themselves are thoughtfully done, you're in all probability looking at a limited sample of participants. The other thing I would say is, again, any of these surveys are kind of missing some of what is really subjective about a senior living community, the culture of the senior living community, the atmosphere of the senior living community. Again, for some people, what's most important is very different than it might be for someone else. I had a family friend who lived in an independent living community for over a decade, and she loved it. And then any time that I would talk to her about her community, which I did frequently, the thing that was most important to her was that this community had someone who baked fresh bread every day. And that was what she loved about the community. And that was what was really important. For somebody else, it's, it's the activities, or it's the wellness program. So again, these ratings and consumer reviews can be helpful, but they don't really capture what may be the most important element for some consumers. I will say that, the Google business reviews for the communities, I think they're always really worth looking at. And I say that because they're going to display both the positive and the negative feedback from consumers. And I think that's again, worth looking at. Again, as with a lot of this, there's a caveat. And the caveat is, when you look at these reviews, again, they're generally, a relatively small percentage of people who, write a Google review. And generally speaking, someone is going to write a review when they're either really enthusiastic, really positive, or conversely, they had, a bad experience, or, something, really irritated them. So you've got to, as a consumer, you've got to realize that when you're looking at these reviews, there's some noise in there, both with very positive and very negative. But again, I think the Google business reviews are, good. It's a good form of feedback for the consumer. Again, bottom line here is, it really behooves you as a consumer to consider multiple sources of information, absolutely personal visits to the community, and again, reviews from residents and families. So, again, if you can do this research yourself, gather information from a variety of sources, that's really always going to be your best bet. I'm going to talk a little bit more about some of the marketing practices of the major online senior referral services. Again, not disclosed, not known by most, but many of the websites that are out there, we'll talk a little bit about some of them, are owned or affiliated by the same entity. So again, that is not disclosed, but that in fact is the case, is that the same owner operates multiple different brand domains. And what these companies do, they buy search keywords, including the names of specific senior living communities, to intercept traffic, or we'll use that term, intercept traffic that's meant for a selected community. So the consumer is at their computer, and they type in the name of a community that they're interested in looking at on the internet, and unbeknownst to them, they have been kidnapped by one of these senior online referral services, and they don't even know what happened. And I think that happens a lot. That is a practice that is very, very common. And I personally believe it's unfortunate that, that this is being done to people that are interested in learning more about senior living and senior care options. But that is, in fact, what happens. So you have to be very careful when you're on the web, that you think that you typed in the name of a community and that's where you end up. But frequently that is not what happens, and you're unknowingly on someone else's website. So again, you want to be a good consumer. You want to know, if you're talking to someone, that that's actually the person that you wanted to talk to. So we'll cover some of that again, but that's a really important thing as a consumer. You've got to really be attentive to where you end up and who you're talking to. I would always encourage you as a consumer to just be particularly alert to websites that offer, again, multiple price comparisons across communities and special downloads. Because you're almost certainly going to be required to provide your personal information, or talk to an advisor who is going to collect your personal information. That's going to be part of how this all works. You will be contacted almost immediately, and you'll be contacted repeatedly. So if you do go onto one of these sites and you fill out your personal information, know that this is going to result in probably lots of calls. Again, I mentioned it at the outset, these online referral services, they want your contact information. That's money for them. And they will share your contact information with multiple local communities that they have contracts with. How many? It may be 8 communities, it could be 10 communities, but it's going to be a bunch of communities. Again, so back to what I said earlier, are they really listening to you when you're telling them what your situation is or what you're interested in or what your needs are? Maybe, but in all probability, they are going to share your personal contact information with a whole number of local communities who will be contacting you. And they may be contacting you morning, noon, and night. Again, that is their motivation. That is ultimately how they get paid. So you need to know that if you give them your information to get a special download or to look for pricing information, you are going to be contacted and with great frequency. Again, if you have contact with someone that works for one of these online referral services, absolutely ask them what qualifications do you have in senior care? How do you get paid? How do you make money? How do you select the communities that you recommend? What's your relationship to the communities that you recommend? This is, again, one that I would always want to know. Have you personally visited the communities that you're recommending? When was the last time you visited one of these communities? Again, you're getting to the essence of, is this a recommendation that really is based on anything that you've talked about or anything that you're specifically interested in? Again, some of the advisors are solid and some of them are absolutely not solid. Again, do you contract with all of the communities in my area? You want to find out, and again, in almost every instance, the answer to that question is no. Again, you can ask them what they are going to do with your personal information. And again, you can ask them specifically, how many communities are you going to send my contact information to? But those are all good questions for a consumer. Again, I alluded to this before. What appears to be dozens and dozens of different senior referral online services, not quite what it appears. The reality is that there are a few companies, again, most of them owned by for-profit entities that really control a whole slew of these sites. So who owns the website that you're visiting? Again, this is a little little web speak for you, but there is a practice that these online referral services use. It's called SERP domination. SERP is an abbreviation for search engine results page. And so again, these single entities have multiple domains. So they have multiple websites out there. And that's part of what their practice is, to try and dominate the search engine's results page. Their goal is to really just get as much visibility and get as many clicks as possible while crowding out competition on the search engine results page. That's what they're trying to do. They're actually quite good at doing that. So they're going to have as many different website domains as possible. And this to me is again something that's really important to know as a consumer. And essentially Google's algorithm. So Google has an algorithm that puts these major entities at the top of the search engine's results page, really because they get a lot of clicks, and they're paying for these clicks. And so they end up at the top of the Google search results page, not because they are the most valuable or because they're the most reliable. That's not why they're at the top of the page. And as a consumer, it behooves you to know that. Won't spend too much time on this. The big players, there are 3 entities that own or are affiliated with about a third of the top senior care online referral websites. The biggest by far is A Place for Mom. And you can see they own senioradvisor.com, agingcare.com, ourparents.com, alzheimers.net, nursinghomes.com, veteranaid.com, etc., assistedliving.com. So they own a slew of these sites. The other big player is caring.com. Again, they own multiple sites, seniorhousing.net, senioradvice.com, payingforseniorcare.com. And then the third largest is an entity called Silver Assist. They own silverassist.com, carechanges.com, familyassets.com, Elder Life Financial, aidandattendance.com. So again, that's that domination by a few entities. I wanted to just take a minute to talk about local in-person referral. So again, these would be individuals who are based in the local markets that you may be interested in. My perspective on them is that they are often more knowledgeable about the options that are available in a particular market. But again, as a consumer, you really need to understand how they're compensated. How do they get paid? So that you can, understand how their recommendations are going to be made. Again, you at least in my mind, if you're looking for a senior living community, whether it's independent living or assisted living or memory care, whatever it is, continuing care, retirement community, you want to look at the options that are out there. So if you're working with someone that is only going to show you, one company's communities because that's who they have a business relationship with, you need to really know that going into that decision. Do I want to work with someone who is maybe not going to show me the best options that are out there in a particular market? Again, some of the local in-person referral services will work so that the consumer is paying them. And again, that might be a very good option for a number of people, but it's important to know how is that individual being paid, and am I really going to see the options that I should be seeing in a particular market? Again, do they work with everyone? Um, let's see here. We're gonna just in terms of the senior living industry's perceptions of these online senior living referral sites. Um, you know, there is a concern about the cost of commissions. I think any senior living provider will tell you that, and it has become increasingly expensive to work with online senior living referral services. Um, Senior living providers absolutely are concerned about negative consumer experiences. No question about that. They're concerned about aggressive marketing practices and the interactions. Again, that's kind of going back to, being inundated with calls morning, noon, and night, and that absolutely happens. At the end of the day, a senior living provider would always prefer you directly reach out to the community and talk to the community directly. Again, I'm just going to move through these because I know we want to take some time for some questions. Again, my recommendations, definitely want to go directly to the community initially, look at the websites, and then in-person visits. Again, use Google, use Bing, whatever your preferred search engine is. I always suggest make a short list of communities that you're interested in as a consumer. Again, important to keep the context in your mind when you're looking at Google reviews or other online reviews. Who is likely to write a review? Someone that's either really unhappy or someone that's really happy, and then you have to look at it and just know that that's in fact what you're looking at. It's not that you shouldn't look at it, but you have to keep it in context. The other recommendations that I would always make, again, at the end of the day, you are the best judge of which community is going to work best for you. When you're ready to do it, go visit the community. They'll be happy to see you. They'll be happy to tour you. When you're there, don't just talk to the sales team. Obviously you will talk to the sales team, but talk to other people that work at the community. If it's a community that has services, talk to someone who's involved in, their health and wellness program. By all means, always suggest eating a meal at the community, visiting at different times of the day. Absolutely want to talk to other residents and family members while you're visiting. Those are all, really important things to do as a consumer. A few other online resources. Where You Live Matters is a consumer website that our organization, American Seniors Housing Association, sponsors. It's a not-for-profit, really just trying to provide unbiased, trustworthy information to older adults and their families. Again, there's no profit motive at all. So whereyouLiveMatters.org is a good website to look at. Others that I recommend, again, longtermcare.gov is a good website. NCOA.org is a good one. That's the National Council on Aging. They have lots of good information for consumers. And then the other one that I put up there is Genworth.com. Genworth, as you may know, is a company that is very involved in long-term care insurance. They have a really unique website that has cost of care for, I think, over 400 markets, and they have cost of care for home health, homemaker services, assisted living, skilled nursing care. It's a good site if you're looking for good information about average price by different markets. So those are all good resources. With that, I'm going to stop talking, and I know that we're going to keep some time for some questions or comments.
David, great job. I was watching this and, we're talking about senior living and and that aspect, that corner of information, if you will. But gosh, you sit and listen to everything that you just said, and the targeted marketing. I think we've probably all seen it and sort of felt it, but really we're not sure that that was actually what was happening. But it for something that seems like it's just you kind of going out on a journey, a lot of it is pointed right back at you. It's just amazing how that works with the marketing, and how smart Google is, and Bing, and all of these websites that we just so kind of innocently hop on to get our information, not realizing that we're being targeted right back with the search words that we put in, and then being given an avalanche of information just based on those targeted keywords. So I'm so glad that you pointed out that out. And I'm also really glad that you pointed out reviews, right? As you said, it's very rare when any of us go on when somewhere and write a review when we're just, it was okay, it was good. It's usually when we're really happy and when we're not so happy. So I have a question for you. And before I get to that, this is a great time, everybody, to hop onto the Q&A button, type your questions out for David if you have any, and we'll get to those here in the remaining minutes we have of this webinar. So when we look at the reviews, we look at the targeted marketing, we look at all this, and as you said, in your discussion today, it does take time to sort of weed through the minutia and get to what you really need to know to make the best decision for you. If somebody comes to you and they are in a situation where it is an immediate need, say it's a parent, or they themselves as the senior need to get to a senior living community, and they don't have the time to go through all of this and do the due diligence, as you said, which does take time, what would you suggest to that person to get the very best information as quickly as possible?
My answer to that is, I think that is one of the, there is a benefit, when I look at the online, referral services. I think that is, really probably where they're at their best would be, someone that's in a crisis situation where there's a real urgency. Again, honestly, in almost every market in the US and probably in Canada too, there are people who are in most of these markets that do, help older adults and their families. They might be, geriatric social workers. Sometimes if you're in a real crisis, you can find a patient advocate, again, online, that really knows the local players really well. So that's what I would say in a real pinch. That would be what I would probably do. And I know people that have had really good experiences with some of the online referral services in those situations, in a pinch. Otherwise, again, if you start early, I'm actually a big believer in the do it yourself research, because I think you get the best, that your selection is really the best informed if you do it yourself.
Sure, of course, absolutely, and that's why we have this webinar today, right? It's to sort of get everybody kind of thinking ahead to these things and thinking about in their searches that the people that you are getting your information from may not have your best interest at heart, because they're getting paid from a specific entity, and they're going to kind of guide you in that direction. So thank you for that. We do have a comment from Anonymous that says, thank you. This was very informative. I totally agree. David, well, we've got a couple of minutes left. Is there any way that you could, one, give us a little bit about your background, and then about your company too, and how you help those who are in need of this kind of information?
Sure. So I have probably a relatively unique background. I have both an undergraduate and a graduate degree in aging. My master's degree was in long-term care administration, although I ended up really only doing that a little bit, and I've been in the association world since the late '80s. I have run the American Seniors Housing Association since it was started in 1991. I have spent a lot of time in senior housing. Our members are companies that own and operate and finance the full spectrum of senior living communities, from active adult to independent living, assisted living, memory care, uh, continuing care, or life plan communities. So, we really are focused in a few areas. We do a lot of research. We have an emphasis on federal advocacy. So, we're a 501(c)(6), not for profit. And then we really started this consumer education effort, again, whereyouLiveMatters.org, several years ago. And we really just wanted to try and create a trusted website that, had really good information and good video content for older adults and their families. Again, for those that are, interested in actually looking for communities, there is a community locator function as part of it. But it's really just, it was something that we did, recognizing that there isn't really a good not-for-profit website out there that that somebody could turn to find trusted information about senior living options. And so we started that 2016.
Gotcha. Okay. And then before we leave today, we've got a couple questions here from Peggy we're going to get to. Before we leave, we would like to get your contact information so that everybody can have that. So get your pen and paper out. We'll get that from David here in just a few minutes.
Sure.
So Peggy wants to know, says, I believe a distinction needs to be made between, quote, online referral companies and local referral companies. And you did discuss both. David talked a great deal about online referral companies, but glazed over the local referral companies. So David, just a little bit of a deep dive here. She says, if you do it yourself, how do you know what you should be looking for or what questions to ask? My understanding is that salespeople are supposed to sell. They also have quotas to make. How do you know if you are getting all the information?
Well, again, I think the best thing to do as a consumer is to, take in all of the information that's out there. But really, to me, you want to build a short list of communities that you're interested in, and you want to visit them yourself, or with, your family. But I think those are the most important. Talk to other residents, talk to their family members. I had one of my bullets was, don't just talk to the sales team. Talk to the people that are, working in dining services. Talk to the people that are involved in the delivery. Again, if it's a setting that has supportive care services. So you want to really talk to a wide range of people. Again, there are, definitely individuals in most markets that work with consumers. Again, you can find them online. Some of them, have formal degrees in social work or geriatric social work. And then some are really just that, people that maybe worked in the industry for a number of years and really know the providers, know the communities, and can help help you. We have a lot of there's information on Where You Live Matters about questions to ask, but I think it's kind of taking in information from a variety of different sources, and then go with your gut. You'll it's one of the it's one of those things that you'll hopefully you'll feel really good about your option. I think there's a lot of really good options in most markets. If you're in a rural area, your options are probably going to be more limited, but in most markets in the US now, I mean, there's a number of different options out there at different price points. So I think you have to just, you have to be a good consumer and do it yourself if you can.
Yeah, and sometimes, like you said, it's going to come down to that gut feeling. And usually, when we're making decisions about anything, we're kind of always leaning towards one over the other. So, great point, Peggy. I hope that answers your question. One from Barbara. What is your opinion on CCRCs, or continuing care retirement communities? Do you think they are a good investment for someone who lives independently? And I have some thoughts on this, but David, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of continuing care retirement communities. I think probably some of the best senior living communities that I've ever visited are continuing care retirement communities. I think they can be really the most robust in terms of programs and activities and resources. Again, they tend to be a bit more pricey, but I am and have been a big fan of continuing care for the entirety of my career. Again, it's like anything else. You want to know, how long have they been in business, and what's their local reputation. But yes, I think continuing care, again, what I would say, also is there. I have talked to thousands of older adults in the course of my 30 plus years in the business, and one of the things that I've heard dozens and probably hundreds of times talking to residents is they say, I waited too long to do this. I wish I did this sooner. And I think continuing care is a great option, especially if you make that decision and you do it earlier, because you can really enjoy the community. And as they say in the industry, I mean, that you can age in place. So there's various services that are there that you might need at some point down the road without having to move to a different setting.
You said it perfectly. Yes. And Barbara, I hope that helps give you some insight on his thoughts on that. My thoughts on that are pretty simple. Everything that David just said, of course, and having the ability to age in place is a wonderful option. And as he also said, so many people say, why did we wait so long to get here? And that is one of the most common things we hear from just about everybody who moves into a community. And you can start from independent living. And then if you need a little extra help, assisted living. And then if you require even more help, you can stay in the same community with all of your friends, all of the people that you know so well. And then the one thing I would just add to that, Barbara, is I would do a cost analysis. If you're living in a house right now, what is it costing you to upkeep on that home? What is it costing you to pay your bills every month? What is it costing you to feed yourself every month? And then put that in a cost calculator. And we actually have one on the Arbor Company website, but I think there are many of them out there. And just see, in terms of an investment, you might be surprised that the amount of money you're spending just to upkeep on a home or an apartment is about the same or similar to what you would be spending at a community, but getting far, far, far more out of the independent living community that you find. So hope that answers your question, Barbara. And Peggy just wanted to circle back and said, thank you for your insight on the previous question. I think we are winding down this webinar now. I think it's been a lot of good information for our guests here today. But before we leave, we did promise that we would get David's contact information. So David, could you share some information on how our viewers can contact you and your company?
Sure. Probably the best way is by email. And my email address would be David, David, at ashaliving.org. That's ASHALIVING.org, ORG. So david@ashaliving.org.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. And you help people from across the country, correct?
Yeah, so our members are companies all across the United States and Canada. Our website, whereyouLiveMatters.org, is more focused on the US. So in terms of like if someone was interested in looking at properties, at this point, it is just the United States, but it is, all 50 states and the District of Columbia. And the information is, we have a very strong advisory group of mostly PhDs and MDs and people that have a lot of expertise in different areas. So again, if you're looking for good information, unbiased, we're not selling anything, we're not promoting any one community over another, whereyouLiveMatters.org. I think you'll find it very helpful.
Awesome. Yeah, and this whole webinar has been helpful. Even I always learn something from these every single time, and I certainly learned from you today, and I know that our viewers did as well. David, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge with us today. We're so appreciative, of course, of news that you can use, and I think that this topic certainly falls under that category. Thank you so much.
It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. And if you enjoyed this webinar with David, please head on over to our website, www.seniorlivinglive.com. There we've got videos all about senior living, just like this one. They're available on demand, and the best part, they are all free. Thank you so much for being a part of Senior Living Live. Have a great day, everybody.